All right, listen up, recruits. Welcome to this explainer. Consider this your ultimate tactical survival guide to mastering the adventure game engine, specifically adapted for the unforgiving, gritty sci-fi reality of the Expanse role-playing game. If you actually want to make it out alive in the black, you're going to want to pay attention.
So here's our mission docket for today. We're going to run through the baseline, the bleeding edge, the void pushes back, and finally, spaceships and tactics. Let's get right to work.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the baseline, specifically trihexagonal resolution.
The basic math keeping you breathing out there is the foundational 3d6 ability test. Seriously, almost every single action you take comes down to this. You roll 3 6-sided dice, add your base ability, tack on any focus bonus you might have, and that's it. By relying on a 3d6 pool instead of just a single die, the system bakes in this feeling of hard science reliability right from the jump.
Now you might be wondering, why exactly does a 3d6 matter so much? Well, let's contrast that bell curve against your standard d20. On a d20, you've got this totally flat, highly unpredictable 5% chance for literally any result. It's a crapshoot. But with 3d6, roughly 67% of your rolls are going to land right in that sweet spot between 8 and 13. What that means for you is that highly trained characters, true experts in their field, aren't just going to randomly fumble what they do best. Your expertise is practically a statistical guarantee.
But wait, there's a twist. Inside that 3d6 pool, one of those dice needs to be a totally different color. We call this the drama die. This little guy is an absolute game changer. It determines your overall degree of success, it breaks ties when you're going head-to-head, and crucially, it generates stunt points. It's the mechanic that takes a standard, by-the-book success and turns it into a split-second, highly cinematic opportunity.
So let's talk about how you actually use those stun points, or SP. Whenever you pull off a successful test and roll doubles on any of those 3 dice, boom, you instantly generate SP equal to whatever that drama die landed on. These usually cost between 1 and 3 points, and they fuel these incredibly fluid combat maneuvers and social tactics. The best part? You don't declare you're trying a vicious blow beforehand and take a massive penalty. No way. You roll first. If you hit those doubles, suddenly you've spotted an opening in the rhythm of the fight, and you spend your SP right then and there to adapt on the fly.
Moving right along to Section 2, the bleeding edge. How to actually survive the void when things go south.
First rule of the Expanse, we are tossing traditional hit points out the airlock. Seriously, there are no meat points here. You can't just absorb 5 rifle rounds to the chest and keep sprinting. Instead, we use the fortune system. Think of fortune as your survival instinct, your pure luck, your plot armor. It represents those adrenaline-fueled near misses that keep your fragile human body actually breathing in the cold vacuum of space.
So when the bullets do start flying and you take a hit, you have to run through what we call the mitigation chain. First up, your natural toughness and any armor you're wearing will reduce that incoming fire. But if there's still damage coming your way, you have to burn your finite fortune points to reduce it point for point. Narratively, this means a bullet maybe just grazed your shoulder instead of totally puncturing your lung. But remember, you are actively burning through your luck just to avoid physical injury.
And what happens when that luck completely runs out? Or, if you strategically choose to save it, well, then you start taking real physical conditions. And let me tell you, the mechanical penalties are absolutely brutal. Taking the injured condition shaves off 1d6 of incoming damage, but it slaps you with a -1 penalty to every single test and leaves you fatigued. Going a step further to wounded reduces another 1d6, but now you're looking at a -2 penalty, you are exhausted, and your speed is literally cut in half. Even a minor physical scrape is going to severely limit your mobility and effectiveness. If you exhaust all your mitigations, you are taken out. Usually that means the attacker gets to decide your fate, which is terrifying. But you do have a trick up your sleeve. You can choose to roll over. This is a really cool cinematic mechanic where you voluntarily take yourself out of the fight early so you can choose your own fate. Maybe you throw your hands up and surrender. Maybe you play dead. It gives you actual narrative agency over your defeat, rather than just getting flat out murdered by some random NPC.
All right, Section 3, the void pushes back. Let's talk about the churn.
You see, in this universe, the environment itself pushes back. We track this using the churn, which is essentially a cumulative pool representing Murphy's Law in space. Every time you spend fortune to tweak a roll, or pull off a massive 4-point stunt, or even just roll a 6 on your drama die, you add a point to the churn pool. As you keep pushing your luck, that systemic tension just keeps building and building.
The first threshold creeps up on you at exactly 10 points. Welcome to Stage 1. This is where minor complications start rearing their ugly heads. We're talking a sudden spike in difficulty for a routine engineering patch, or maybe a minor environmental hazard trips you up while you're breaching a hull.
Then we hit the 20-point mark. Stage 2. Now, major setbacks are hitting the entire crew. That friendly NPC you've been relying on, they suddenly drop their cooperative attitude. Or maybe a vital clue for your investigation just gets heavily encrypted and locked down.
And finally, we reach the terrifying 30-point epic threshold, Stage 3. At this point, catastrophic complications just trigger automatically. It is bad news. We are talking a highly lethal reactor leak, a blindside micrometeorite strike, or an entire squad of enemy reinforcements suddenly pinging on your radar. The system naturally escalates things to a climax where the environment itself is just as deadly as the people shooting at you.
Which brings us nicely to Section 4, Spaceships and Tactical Combat.
Out here, a spaceship is way more than just a ride from point A to point B. It functions like an incredibly lethal, highly synergistic party member. Just think about the scale. A tiny breaching pod rolls a mere 1d3 for its hull dice, and you only need one person to fly it. But scale that all the way up to a Titanic vessel, something like the Nauvoo, and suddenly you are rolling 7d6, requiring a crew of over 1,000 people. The sheer size of your ship directly dictates how much punishment it can take and the massive logistical nightmare of running it.
Now, ship combat is all about synchronized crew synergy. Let's rapid fire through the combat phases. It all kicks off with command, where a captain's leadership actually generates stunt points to hand out to the rest of the crew. Next, the pilot rolls maneuver to dictate the engagement range. Then comms officers handle electronic warfare to jam enemy targeting systems. Gunnery officers finally fire the weapons. And last but not least, engineers desperately run damage control. Every single person on that crew is directly fueling the ship's survival.
And here's the kicker. Just like your characters, ships do not have hit points. If your ship takes penetrating damage, it takes losses. A loss will mitigate that incoming damage, sure, but it physically cripples a specific, vital system on the ship. You aren't just watching a health bar tick down. Your sensors literally get blinded, or your primary drive gets totally knocked offline right in the middle of a desperate firefight.
All right, last up, Section 5, Logistics and Realities.
Listen, we are completely abandoning the traditional RPG loot economy here. You are not delving into dungeons to hoard gold coins. Acquiring gear in the Expanse relies entirely on your income score. You roll 3d6, add your income, and compare it against an item's cost. It is a wonderfully realistic system grounded entirely in logistics, maintaining credit lines, and navigating actual supply chains.
And I really have to remind you, space is an actively hostile environment that wants you dead. You absolutely need the juice. It's this essential, heavy-duty drug cocktail required to survive high-G maneuvers. If your pilot decides to pull a massive high-G turn to dodge an incoming torpedo and you aren't pumped full of the juice, those G-forces are going to literally cause massive internal bleeding. You have to willingly take physical conditions just to survive the sheer brutal physics of space combat.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question for you recruits. As we've seen today, your professional expertise. That is mathematically reliable. But your luck, your fortune, that is incredibly finite. Every single time you push that luck, the universe pushes right back. So, do you have what it takes to balance your fragile fortune against the inevitable churn of the universe? Or are you just going to become another ghost drifting in the void? Think carefully on that one. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and stay sharp out there in the black.